Welcome to Dr. Lotte's Science with Soul, the podcast that transcends the boundaries between science and spirituality. Prepare to be uplifted, transformed, and awakened to create a path to healing your own life physically, emotionally, and spiritually by bridging the gap between science and soul. I would like to invite you to my 7-week course through the Shift Network, Quantum Entanglement and Your Mother Wound. During this course, we will explore why you might be struggling with physical, emotional, or spiritual issues and how these issues are related to our mothers. When our childhood needs for physical, emotional, and spiritual nourishment aren't adequately met, it sets the stage for a range of physical and emotional challenges later in life. You might be thinking, but my mother was perfect. I'm here to tell you that even if you think your mother was perfect, you most likely still carry a mother wound. We will be examining DNA, quantum entanglement, and somatic memories, as well as taking a closer look at our own lived experiences to better understand the factors contributing to our present-day challenges. You will develop a deep understanding of the sacred trinity of body, mind, and spirit, and how our own healing is interconnected with the divine, miraculous web of life itself. I will guide you through transformational shamanic meditation journeys that will uncover the root causes of the issues that you're facing, and you will be supported throughout the course with reflective journaling exercises. In our culminating class, we will ceremoniously weave together the threads of wisdom we have gathered throughout the course and embark on a profound and deeply healing shamanic meditation journey to release and heal the mother wound we have worked on during our time together. To learn more about this course, visit the link in the episode show notes or visit my website at drlotte.com. I look forward to having you join my course. Welcome to Dr. Lotte's Science with Soul. Today's guest is Reverend Sue Frederick, who is an ordained Unity minister, clairaudient, soul regression therapist, and master numerologist. She channels messages and prayers from the angelic realm and receives wisdom from guides to help people heal grief and find purpose. She uses sacred numerology and mystical information in her books and teachings. Reverend Sue Frederick is the author of 11 books, including Through a Divine Lens, Practices to Quiet Your Ego, and Align with Your Soul, and the Sacred Numerology Workbook. As a student of numerology since 1980, she brings a deeply enlightened perspective to using numbers as navigational guidance tools for deciphering the soul's journey. Her website is SueFrederick.com. Welcome, Sue. It's such an honor to have you as a guest today.
I'm just honored to be here with you. You have an amazing story.
Well, so do you. And I can't wait for the listeners to learn about your work and what you're doing here in the world. Let's start with, how did you get into numerology?
Well, I always say that grief is our greatest spiritual teacher, and grief definitely woke me up in 1980. I was 29 years old, and I was married to a young, beautiful mountain climber named Paul Frederick, and we were both outward bound mountaineering instructors in the 70s. And he suddenly had a few stomach problems, and by the time he was accurately diagnosed, and he was 32, and diagnosed with colon cancer, I walked him through a journey that we thought we would heal him. The doctors, we had surgery and chemo plus Native American healing and herbs, and we were doing every kind of therapy available in the late 70s. And we thought it was about overcoming the challenge. And he suffered terribly and went through, I would say, a year of the most horrendous physical suffering I've ever seen anyone go through. And then he died in my arms on July 13th, 1980. And I say that date just because I call that date July 13th my spiritual awakening. Because as I held him in my arms, he showed me all through the final hours of his life, he was showing me that spirit was more real than the physical body. And with his very intentional death, the way he took his final breath, the way he waited for me to calm down and sit beside him and hold him, just it was the most extraordinary metaphysical experience of knowing in every cell of my body that the spirit is not trapped in the body, that the spirit is magnificent and free and there is no death. He showed me all of that in his beautiful exit, and I saw his spirit leave his body with his final breath. And at that moment, I was turning 30, and all my friends were getting married and having babies. And I was going, whoa, what is the meaning of life? Why did this beautiful man have to suffer so much? Is there a God? And if there is, how could they possibly allow this? And what is my purpose? Why am I still here? And I saw a therapist. I visited various spiritual traditions. And the only thing that made sense, that helped me, was a reading from a numerologist in 1980. And she sat with me and said, hey, this was your soul agreement with Paul. Look, you can see it all in these numbers. And look, this is your path, Sue. You're here on this 22-4 path to be a huge teacher in the world of sacred knowledge when you're ready. And it's your free will choice, but that's what you agreed to do. And Paul was on the 5 birth path, all about learning lessons through the body, being very passionate and physical and fearless and charismatic. All of that was very Paul. And our soul agreement together was the number 9, the ultimate number of surrender and final lessons. And once she just laid it all out for me, showed me my personal year cycles, I just went, now I can make sense of this and turn it into something helpful and eventually help other people.
Wow, that is such a powerful story, of finding your purpose in life. And then that you have a master life path number of 22-4, and I'm a master life path of an 11-2.
I knew you were. I had a feeling I was going to ask you what it was.
And I knew you were a master life path before we logged on. And I said, I don't know if she's an 11 or a 22. And I could not get a clear answer.
That about you.
So it makes sense, right? And also it was in all of this happened in your Saturn return.
Right. In my first Saturn return. Right.
And everything just shifted. And I see this when I work with people, though I work with the spirit guides and the spirit world to tap into people. So now you found your life purpose and you got into numerology. And then
however, I still had to make a living. I mean, here you have to think about my life here. I was 29. My husband had died in my arms. We'd been mountain climbers. We had no money. We had no, I had to instantly move out of my apartment and stay with a friend until I could figure out how to, get a job somewhere and get my own apartment. And I had always been a writer, but not successful in my own mind because I hadn't ever been published. And so I really decided, all right, well, now if there's one skill I can use to make a living, it has to be writing. And I enrolled in creative writing and journalism at University of Colorado. And as I was in school, I was also teaching fitness so I could make a living and get an apartment and all of that. It was just bare bones survival. But the good thing was that all through that, I was spiritually seeking answers. And I studied every spiritual path along with numerology, Buddhism, Hinduism, Unity, Course in Miracles, Native American, on, Theosophy. And I even visited the Theosophical Society Center in Chicago. And So I was doing all these things to put it together so that someday my goal was to be able to write and teach these things. But in the meantime, I had to make a living. So I was making a living as a health writer eventually. And that's why I love helping people find career. And my first book, I See Your Dream Job, was all about that because knowing my life path helped me realize, oh, well, if I worked hard, I could be a journalist, I could write about health, and then eventually step up to my spiritual work and teaching.
Wow. And you wrote a lot of books.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Once you're 22, you think you've never done enough. You're always compelled. There's always another book you have to write.
I mean, that's where I'm at. I've only written one so far, and I know I'm supposed to write at least three, right? Because that was the original
Right,
message. I'm here to
right.
write three books, and they're brewing in the background.
Hmm.
And so I know it's coming, though I think it's a little bit, I think it's like 3 or 4 years away. I think I'm in a 5 year now.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I feel like that's going to be
I'm
like
in a
a month
5 year
or a
too.
1 year.
That's, yeah. Yeah,
Right?
I'm in a 5 year, and I was telling my girlfriends at the beginning of this year, wow, I was going, wow, I'm so glad to be out of last year was a 22-4 year for me, and I'm on a 22-4 path. So it was so much hard work. I'm overbooked with clients, and I had a new book come out last year, and I was going, I can't wait till my 5 year. It'll be more free and more adventure. And then my great adventure happened in my 5 year in March. And it ended up, instead of a beach vacation, it was almost dying and being reborn. And I am really reborn right now, Dr. Lotte. I don't know if you can feel it in my energy, but the transition that I went through in the last few months, I feel like I'm on a new lifetime at the moment. And it came from a severe health crisis, cancer diagnosis, major surgery, and a soul council with my guides about, okay, if I'm going to stay, what does that need to look like? How does it need to be different from how it's been? And getting the download from them, getting the answers, and making changes in my life so that I could stay. And here I am a few months later. And strangely, I've never felt better. I've never felt younger, happier, and healthier. And I'm in my 70s. So when I talk about rewriting your soul contract, that's what I'm talking about.
So so you had like a soul to soul talk where your spirit guides came in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a soul regression therapist, so I do it for clients all the time, where I'm taking them into the divine and having them talk to their spirit guide, their council of elders, their departed loved ones, and asking questions like, what is the purpose of my life? Why did such and such happen? What am I trying to learn? And so the minute I ended up in the hospital in March, you know, I had to, of course, be focused on what was happening to my body, but I tried to put most of my focus on the conversation with God consciousness, the conversation with the higher beings. Fortunately, I had made my living doing this kind of work for long enough that when I hit my own crisis, that's where I went, to the focus on the divine. And I was surrounded by, I have the greatest girlfriends in the universe. They're all part of this nonprofit called Helping Parents Heal, and they've all lost a child. And so they are completely spiritually awakened and so enlightened. And together we all talked about it. Sue, is this your soul's exit point? And if it's not, what does it mean? Why is it happening? And I always say you want friends who look at the world that way, so that when anything happens, those are the conversations you're having, rather than going, oh, this is horrible, this is a tragedy, blah, blah, blah. None of us went there. All of us went to, wow, what does this mean from your soul's perspective? And I got the download myself, the answers, and then I had girlfriends calling me and going, here's what I got. And we were all coming up with the same things. And so I had to take action on all of that between diagnosis and surgery, because I had talked to my guides and they had said, it's your free will, but if you stay, your original soul plan is complete. It's finished. It's over. You did it. Now to stay, here's what we would ask of you. And so I had to change. I had to get rid of a lot of clients. And I say that with gratitude and sadness, because I have seen clients every day for decades. That's how I make my living. And I'm grateful for every minute with them. But I had realized it was too much and that I needed to shift more into teaching and speaking and less into everyday individual clients. And so I had to go through my calendar before surgery and ask all of those clients to go and consider being in a class with me or a group reading instead. Um, they did. Fortunately, most of them did make that transition with me. And today I can tell you I'm only seeing about a tenth of the clients that I used to see. And it has lifted my energy. And now I'm teaching classes much more. And I love teaching. Every 22 is a great teacher. So I'm doing a lot of teaching, a lot of classes, and a lot of online group readings that are so wonderful and they uplift me so much. And my energy has shifted to a much higher frequency. And in many ways, I don't even feel like the same person I was before the cancer and the cancer diagnosis. I feel very much reborn.
Wow. I mean, it's just such a good message for all the people out there that are struggling with whatever it is that they're struggling with, right? To take action in a different way. When your husband passed away, did you see in his chart that that was his exit point?
Yeah, that was his. There are, and I just want to say to anybody listening too, please don't take this the wrong way. If it had been my, complete final soul exit point, it would not have been negotiable and I would have had to check out. But Paul's was non-negotiable when he crossed over. That was, and when children cross, that is a non-negotiable exit point, because the exit point is for waking up the whole soul posse in a way that only the death of someone young can do. And those are always highly evolved souls, those children who cross early, highly evolved, don't need to stay long on the earth realm. And they cross, and then their whole family has this huge spiritual awakening, even though there's a lot of pain, of course. So when I say I was able to negotiate my exit point, I am not saying that every exit point is negotiable. It's just that this one happened to be.
Yeah, that is my understanding too. And that's what I've seen when I work with people or do mediumship readings.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how somebody passed, but it's part of that soul contract. Even if it was a suicide, it's part of the contract.
Right. Exactly.
And that's, it's for the people that are left behind to grow. It's almost like they sacrifice their life for the other
Right.
family members in that way.
That's
Um,
exactly right.
so yeah, so everybody can't rewrite their soul contract, right?
Right.
Some people have, that is, they came in to
That's it.
pass at that time, or or to awaken other souls.
And you
Um,
had your near-death experiences, which showed that it was negotiable for you as well,
right.
right?
So I learned from an astrologer that the on in during my first near-death experience, which was July 10th,
Mm,
1992,
wow.
and on that day, the sun was in the exact same position as it was when I was born.
Wow.
And that it all the planets like aligned that way. And so that me leaving my body on that day was a reminder what I incarnated to do in this life.
Oh,
and
that's
to
so
work
good.
spiritually and be a healer for other people.
Mhm.
So it's fascinating how everything is in your astrology
I
and
know.
numerology chart. If we just all knew how to read it, like a
I
newspaper
know.
or a book, right? But
But
luckily we have people like you that
well,
can
the thing
translate it.
I think helps grieving people the most is, especially if they've lost a child, which is devastating loss, and my heart goes out
Yeah.
to anyone who's lost a child. But once they begin to have a small piece of them consider that their child was a highly evolved soul and the plan had always been that they would leave early, that actually the parents made that soul agreement with their beloved child before the lifetime began, not from the way that our conscious mind thinks, but from our soul's awareness and our soul's perspective. Because parents will say, "Oh, I would have never agreed to that." No, of course not. Your
Yeah.
human self would never agree to that kind of loss. However, your soul in the divine realms understands the bigger picture of why we come to Earth, which is simply a learning journey, and that we each come with an important mission of not only awakening our own souls, but helping others wake up. And the bravest souls of all agree to experience devastating loss because that will break their heart wide open and send them seeking higher meaning and seeking spiritual answers. So many of my grieving parents who are clients, they say they kind of went to a religion or a church, but they just slept through it a lot, until their child crossed, when suddenly they realized that nothing was being said in that church resonated as true for them anymore. And then they went on their own spiritual journey of, wait a minute, where is my child? And is there a God? And the reason I became a unity minister is that I believe unity gets it right when they say that God is a loving force of unconditional love that runs this universe, and we are all part of that force of unconditional love.
Yeah. That's exactly true. I mean, that was one of my experience and my near-death experience. And it's all about love. It's all about gratitude. It's all about compassion and loving other people. And we're just here to basically learn to love people, and be understanding and compassionate. Um, Now you had an out-of-body experience yourself, right?
Yes, I've had the vision behind me, if people can see that. It was, well, I've had three shared death experiences, which I can also talk about, but this out-of-body vision was very important to me. It came in 2014. I had been teaching a grief workshop, helping the people connect to their children or their beloveds in spirit. And I flew home and I was exhausted and I got really sick and run down and I burned up a really high fever. And one night I was out of my body and I was held by the angels and shown this vision that you can see behind me of the earth. I was held in space looking at the earth and shown all these beams of light sticking up from the planet Earth. And I said, "What is that?" And these loving angels who were holding me with so much love and kindness were saying, "Sue, every time a soul wakes up to know that they're more than a physical being and opens their heart to love unconditionally, it shines a huge light beam up into the universe, and it transforms the darkness. And that's how Earth is evolving. The light is always winning, the love is always winning." And they showed me the moving light around the earth, filling in all the dark crevices. And I said, "Why are you showing me this?" And this went on all night. And they said, "Because future years on earth are going to be very hard. And people like you, have to share this message that no matter how grim things can look up close, we have to step back and remember that light is more powerful than darkness, that darkness is simply the absence of light, and that the light is always winning and always does win. And that at the time, it was 2014, and I remember when I started feeling better, I was trying to make sense of the vision, and I started writing because that's how I try to process things. And I was thinking, gosh, why would they show that to me now? And now, of course, I look back over the last few years and COVID and politics and how we're all just in such conflict with each other now. And I realize, wow, so I was given that vision so that when all of this happened now, I can be one of those people talking about how still the light is winning, and our only job right now is to shine our light as brightly as we can.
Yeah. Oh, that was a beautiful vision, and message too, to bring that light in. Now, when we think about the way the world is, so what can you talk a little bit about the year that the Earth is experiencing in numerology, and
Oh,
what that
yes.
means?
Yes, yes, yes. This is the universal 8 year, and 8 is a number of power. And what it means is that when you're under the influence of the 8, every question, every challenge that comes to you is asking you to own your power physically, spiritually, emotionally, financially, but to use right use of power. Now, there's a big difference between right use of power and power abuse. So, in an 8 universal year, what we're seeing on the world stage is wrong use of power and right use of power, and the conflict that is stirring up huge conflict. And the result will be determined by how many of us stand in our right use of power, our love, our light, and that we don't hate on each other for disagreeing, that we don't hate on each other for politics or things that are happening, and instead that we try to find compassion and just looking at each other as souls on a journey, and that we're all worthy of love, we're all doing the best we can, and that the people who seem most angry and dark and hateful are the people who need the most love, not the most hatred from other people. And that's a hard lesson for humanity, because humans just love to argue ideas. They just love to butt heads and, all of that. And so we have to take a stand for compassion, for kindness, and for love.
Right. And we got here in the United States, we have the election coming up later this fall.
And that's a tipping point there of
Right.
how will this 8 power play out. And it's being determined every minute, and it's being determined by all of us. So if we see something happen on the news that upsets us, if we give negative energy to that thing or that event, we're not using our power correctly. If instead we try to find a way to hold it in love, hold it in goodness, then we are starting to shift it into the light. That is our right use of power. In fact, I started this angelic ministry program, and I have so many wonderful students in this course, and we're doing all these exercises where we're seeing an event that's playing out on earth, and we're transforming it with our intention, with love, with light, and pulling people in that situation up to a higher frequency with our love. Because once we hold someone in a higher frequency just with our energy and our love, now they can make a free will choice to go back into that higher frequency because they've experienced it with our help, even briefly. And you know how when somebody you love is acting badly, and you can't argue with them anymore because it's just not helping,
Mhm.
you need to go into your meditation and see that person as the beautiful soul they are, doing the best they can to the level of their awareness, and send them so much love until you see them just smiling back at you and being their best self. now you've held them in a higher frequency, and they can make a free will choice to go back there or not, but you've shown them how it can feel to be in that higher vibration.
Yeah, that's great advice. Because that's what the world needs, right? Is more
Mhm.
compassion, more love,
Mhm.
and understanding for each other, and that it's okay to have different viewpoints.
Right.
But in order to raise our consciousness, we have to listen to each other and find resolution to our problems instead of just creating more hate.
Yeah.
Um, and did everyone on Earth incarnate to do meaningful work? And how is that illuminated in numerology?
Yeah, so I get asked this a lot because people will say, I just go to this other job to make my money, but then on the weekends I volunteer here and there, and that's my meaningful work. And I am calling on the souls here on earth to remember that we don't come here to separate ourselves from our highest self in order to go to work and pay the bills. That's the story that the culture has given us, and people buy it. What amazes me is how many people work in jobs that they hate, that they feel like suck their soul away, and yet they feel that they don't have an option. We all have free will. We all have an option, and there is a unique and meaningful career for each of us. But the free will comes in when we have to go and find it, and we have to do the inner work to find it, not just accept, oh, I've got to get a job to pay the bills, no matter how that feels, or if it has anything to do with who I am as a soul or my meaningful work. And
Mhm.
so this is a time in humanity's evolution, I believe, that we're all being called to wake up to the higher purpose here. We are divine beings. We are more powerful than any circumstance that could ever come our way. We can all make money, good money. There's no shortage of money in this world. It's energy. We can all make good money doing our unique, true work. And that's what I help people understand with the numbers. Every path has a specific vibration of the kind of career that that person would really be suited for. But it's unique because each of us is a soul who's had other lifetimes, who has a soul gift, who has a soul challenge, a pain story. And you put all those unique pieces together, and yes, we each have a meaningful path forward of meaningful work. Mine is different from yours, and many people here are in different phases of their life where they're learning different parts of the journey that they'll put together in the future to their meaningful career. But that is our purpose here, not just to exist as if we have no agency as divine beings here.
Right. And do you have any memories of like your past lives?
I do, but I've also known and I've learned from other teachers that I came from the angelic realm, that souls have different origins. And some souls have incarnated on earth for thousands and thousands of lifetimes, and others come from the angelic realms, which is a higher frequency. And the angels do incarnate on earth only to try to help when humanity is in trouble. But the hard thing is when they get here, they don't really know how to play this game and how to fit in and how to get a job and all that. And if you had known me in my 20s and 30s, you would have said, wow, she just can't figure out the money thing, But I was doing my best with it, with my birth path and trying to figure it out. And I'm here to say that I did and that we all can, but it is an intention and a purpose. And the other thing is, in my past lifetimes, I was like I was a Native American. I'm very clear on that memory. And I was a sacred healer and a warrior.
Mhm.
And when I came into this lifetime, I carried both of those sort of opposing energies with me, healing and being a warrior. And one of the things in this lifetime I've had to uh, overcome is the tendency to want to fight my way through life. Many 22-4s understand that because 4 is a number of strength, and the strength can be too much. And you're an 11, so your sensitivity guides you, and your intelligence and your ability to drill down to research, to detail. But it's different for a 22-4. We come in with so much strength that the first thing we're feeling like is, gee, whatever somebody tells me to do, I'm going to do the opposite. So we each have our challenges and our gifts.
Right. Fascinating. And about the past lives. So you do soul regression too, right?
Yeah.
What can people learn if they do a soul regression?
That, you know, every lifetime has a specific learning intention to it. And if we go back and experience it and rework through some of those moments of it, it's not to traumatize us or anything. It's showing us, wow, in that lifetime, I overcame such and such, but I still had this to learn. So I chose to come into this lifetime so that I could really master that lesson. And in fact, just today, I had a client who, in a past lifetime, she and her mother had been, I guess you would say, witches, but I hate that word because it has such a negative thing. But they were like shamans in their community, and they were very persecuted. And they came into this lifetime as British aristocracy. And so a very different lesson about being accepted by the world and having meaningful work. I mean, it's just so fascinating. All I can say is what I've learned is everything's intentional here. Everything's on purpose. If you're born in a certain set of circumstances, it's because your soul and your spirit guides, your counsel decided that that was what was going to serve your growth the most, even if it had all kinds of pain intertwined in it, and that you were strong enough and capable of overcoming every challenge, or they would not have let you take that lifetime.
What would you say was the meaning of you getting sick this past year? Did you find any meaning in that?
Yeah, so many came to me, and I had been carrying, even though I do this work and everything, I had carried some trauma from Paul's suffering. There were images of his suffering that I had done all kinds of Reiki and healing work and everything to try to delete from my body, but they still lingered. And the way I would know they were there is that if I would visit a friend in the hospital or something, I would feel physical reactions like tightening of the throat and different things that came from way back, 1979, 1980, you know. And so I had just decided, well, you know, that's just how it is. I'm just gonna keep going. But when I went through this experience and I was given the diagnosis of colon cancer, my friends who are brilliant and my surgeon, because I found through intuitive searching, I found the perfect surgeon for me. And she walked in and said, I know you have PTSD from your first husband, because I had told her that in all my communications. And she said, this is going to heal your PTSD because your experience will be completely different. And it was. It's just astounding because now within the same lifetime, I didn't have to leave and come back. I have healed the physical trauma of watching Paul and caring for him in my 20s when I was totally not equipped to be alone with a dying, suffering man the way I was, and trying to relieve his suffering and feeling so incompetent and inept at it. I now got to rewrite that. And it gave me physically a whole different energy in my body. And it gave me a new way to move forward, helping and teaching and helping heal others who have been through trauma.
Yeah, it is fascinating, isn't it? How the things that the trauma that we experience comes back in a different way. And so that those emotions and feelings about that experience comes back up so that we can heal it. It's like the circle of life.
It is. And doesn't it just show you how divine order rules everything, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
when I first got that diagnosis, I was in such shock because I have eaten healthy every day of my life. I mean, I was a natural health writer and editor of a big health magazine in my 30s and early 40s, and I knew what colon cancer was all about and what caused it, and I wrote all kinds of articles and stories about preventing it. The universe has such a good sense of humor. And I bought all my food at a healthy grocery store and only ate, really healthy stuff. And my family of origin in the South, when I'd go visit them, they would laugh at me like, "Oh, Sue has to bring her special ingredients for this and that." And they were right. Like, I really was obsessed with being healthy. And I did pretty good. I mean, it was 73 when I got this diagnosis, and until then, I've been very, very healthy. And in fact, my surgeon told me when she was inside of me taking out the cancer that all my organs, she said, that looked like the organs of a teenager, that I looked so healthy. So I know it was a cosmic intentional event. And the other piece of it was that it was protected somehow from spreading. And she was amazed by that. She called it a miracle because she said some of the lymph nodes looked suspicious, some of the tissue around it looked suspicious. And she took out a pretty significant chunk of my ascending colon. And then it all went to the lab, of course, and she took out 25 lymph nodes. And when she called me to say there was no spread in any of that tissue or the lymph nodes, she was blown away. She said, "Sue, you have been given a miracle and you just need to go live your life now." And I haven't had to have chemo or any kind of follow-up. And what my brilliant girlfriends have also downloaded for me is that that choice was being made up until the last minute of surgery, that whether my soul was going to stay or go. And I love that because it really was. I was going to have to change my focus and change my life in many ways in order to stay. And we have some free will in all of that here.
Wow, what a story. I mean, it's just, incredible that you're so, that's your path, right?
Mhm.
And that's how your story turned out.
Mhm.
How can people work with you and learn more about what you do?
My website is SueFrederick.com, and I have a soul path calculator there, and it's free, and people can go in and input their date of birth and find out all kinds of information about their path and their personal year and their pinnacles. And all through my experience with this illness, I was paying attention to the numbers and they were providing the story for me. And they are the greatest angelic signs we could ever ask for. When I was in the first hospital room where I was receiving the diagnosis, the number of the room digited down to the number 9, right? Ultimate surrender, ultimate hard, important lesson, culmination of life. And so as I would get it, the diagnosis and everything and talking about surgery, I just kept looking at that 9 going, "All right, Sue, the only thing for you to do here is surrender and let this unfold the way it has to unfold. Give it the 9 energy of graceful surrender with love." And so I worked on that. And then when I went back into the hospital for surgery, the number that the room I was randomly assigned to was 3311, two master soul numbers right next to each other. And the number of the room was on a board right above the bed. So my girlfriends would come in and they would see 3311 right above my head. And they would be like, "Oh my God, you've got so much angel and spirit in here helping you."
Not a coincidence.
Right. No such thing as coincidence. The numbers are always trying to give us guidance. They're always telling us a story about what's unfolding and how to move through it and what the lesson is. And if we incorporate the beautiful energy of the numbers, the beautiful lesson of it, then we can be more graceful as we move through these things, more focused on the deeper meaning, the lesson of it, and the gift of it, rather than the tragedy or the randomness of it, which I believe is not real. It's nothing here is random. And so I would say that anybody who wants to learn more about those numbers, I have many classes on my website, SueFrederick.com, numerology classes. I have self-guided classes so they can take it on their own time. I'm teaching a live workshop in numerology in July, and it's all on my website, SueFrederick.com.
Oh, that's wonderful. And my last question to you is, what do you think is the meaning of life?
Oh, well, I believe we're all pieces of God consciousness and that we are trying to shift energy on earth to a higher frequency, a higher kind of existence in the earth plane where there is no veil, where we are able to navigate this realm and the divine realms at the same time, where there is no death, where we work as spirit and physical body at the same time, and that we work here to do good in the world, that that's our goal, that's our end point. But we can't get there until collectively we all evolve. And so the hard part is that in order for the collective consciousness to all evolve, we have to pull out those dark, lost souls who have been kind of living in the darkness and bring them up into the light. So everything that's happening in the world right now is also designed to bring up what has been hidden so that we can see it. Nothing can be healed until it's revealed. And now all of these people who've lived in pain and negativity and all of this are being brought up to be healed and shift consciousness. And we can't achieve it until every soul achieves it. So we're all in this together. And at the end of the day, the most important thing that we walk this earth with is the awareness that we're all connected, that we're all energy, that none of us are separate. And that if I hate on somebody, that is hurting all of us, including me. But if I love on somebody unconditionally, that ripple goes out and heals and helps everyone. That's how I see it.
Ah, that's beautiful. So we're going to put in your link to your books and to your website. And your books can be found on Amazon as well.
That's right. I have a sacred numerology workbook there too.
Oh, that's great. So her website again is SueFrederick.com, and we'll put that in the podcast notes as well. So it was an honor to have you as a guest today. So thank you so much for taking time.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
As we conclude this episode, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for your presence within my community. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe, comment, like, and share this podcast episode. Join my free newsletter in the show notes and receive new podcast episodes delivered right to your inbox. If you resonate with the interconnectedness of mind, body, and soul, and are motivated to embark on a journey of personal healing, I invite you to connect with me at drlotte.com. Together, we can pave a path towards transformative healing in your own life.